In this session, we will learn the basics of .NET Framework and Windows Forms. .NET Framework is a software development framework for building Windows applications. It has two major components, Common Language Runtime known as CLR and the .NET Framework class library. The Common Language Runtime is the execution engine that handles running applications and provides services like thread management, garbage collection, and much more. .NET Framework class library is a collection of classes, namespaces, interfaces, and value types that are used for .NET applications. It supports various programming languages such as Visual Basic and C# and IronPython. These programming languages have a compiler, which compiles the code and converts it into Common Intermediate Language code, also known as bytecode, which is then processed by the Common Language Runtime engine and is converted into machine code. This process is called just-in-time compilation, where the bytecode is converted to machine code which runs the software. The framework class library is used for developing applications such as console applications, Windows GUI applications, web applications, Windows services, and more. In the framework, related classes and interfaces are grouped in namespaces. Now, what is a namespace? A namespace is a named region in a program and is used to limit the scope of variables inside the program. It creates a separate region for group of variables, functions, and classes. The framework has classes for reading and writing files, drawing shapes, and for Windows forms and controls. An assembly is a collection of types and resources. Assemblies are in form of executable or dynamic link library files. They provide the Common Language Runtime with the information it needs to be aware of type implementations. It can contain one or more modules or namespaces with many class definitions. When we install .NET Framework, the assembly files of the framework are copied into Global Assembly Cache, where all assembly files are stored and are shared by several applications on the computer. We can find assembly required for our application in the GAC folder, which we need to import. In IronPython, to import an assembly in the script, we need to use the CLR module. CLR module has many functions to import the assembly, out of which add reference method is mostly used. Once we import the assembly, we need to import the specific class or module by using import keyword. We can import all modules in the assembly by using star operator. For creating Windows application, we have to import system Windows Forms namespace using the CLR module. Then from this namespace, we have to import form class and all other classes of the controls which we want to use in the application. Now let's start with Windows Forms. Windows Forms is a special type of control that represents a complete window. It is an interface for developing applications by adding controls and responding to events produced by these controls. The Forms class provides a number of basic properties that determine appearance and window style, which we will explore in Windows Forms Designer. It also has events of its own. These events allows us to react when the form acquires focus, is about to be closed, or is first loaded into memory. From the class diagram, we can see that the form class is derived from container control class, which implements methods to host other controls. The container control class is derived from scrollable control class, which gives scrolling functionality to any control derived from it. It displays horizontal or vertical scroll bars when the size of the control is small as compared to the data displayed on the control. Now let's understand more about Windows Forms in Windows Form Designer available in Sharp Develop. When we start a new Windows Forms based project, we get a blank form on which we can drag and drop controls from the tools list here onto the form. Here in the Windows Forms Designer tab, we can design the user interface of our application. On the form, we can position controls with size and location information and set properties values using Properties window. The form has basic properties which we access from Properties tab. We can modify properties like name, which is the name of the form class, text to set the title of the form border style that determines the form border's appearance and whether it can be resized, minimize box and maximize box, specify whether the window has maximize or minimize box at the top right corner. We can set startup position of the form when the form is displayed. We can set any position available in the list. We can change the size of the form using size property, but we can drag the form using handle to resize the form as per our needs. Now let's see the script files which define the form. First, we see the program script file. In this script, the CLR module is imported and a reference of system Windows Forms namespace is added. Here we see another important class, application class imported from system Windows Forms namespace. It provides static methods and properties to start and stop an application and process Windows messages. We also import the main form class since it is defined in another script file. We create the object of the main form class and pass it to the run method of the application class. Run method starts the application and makes the form visible as long as the application is running. When we close the form, the application terminates. Now let's understand the form class. Here also we import the required namespace of the framework. The main form class is defined and it is derived from the form class, which is the base class in system Windows Forms namespace. In the main form class, two functions, constructor and initialize component, are predefined. Initialize component method is controlled by Windows Forms Designer module and we should not edit it manually. The constructor calls the initialize component method when the application starts. In the initialize component method, we can see that the properties of the form are predefined, which will take effect when the application starts. Let's run the application to see the process. Here we see a blank form displayed. We can change the form properties as we want to suit the application needs. If we use Visual Studio Community or VS Code instead of Sharp Develop, then all of the code used here to define the form must be entered manually, and also additional code to define the controls should be added, which will increase the development time of the application. In the next session, we will learn about controls which we will place on the forms to design the interface. In the Windows Forms code, we have seen that application class is used to run the form application. Application class is part of system Windows Forms namespace and has methods to start and stop applications and to process Windows messages. Here we try to understand the internal message loop of the Windows Forms. When we start the application, the main method calls the run method of the application class, which starts a new thread and starts a message loop on that thread. It also displays the form. The message loop keeps running until it receives a quit message, which can be sent from application code or by the user physically closing the window. In both cases, the message loop terminates, the window closes and the application exits.